Namo Buddhaya and good morning, friends. Last Sunday, Brother Ananda Fong shared with us on reflections, reflection on resolutions and aspirations, right? So these aspirations, especially as Buddhist practitioners, it is part of our Buddhist practice. So when we do our aspirations, let us make it very simple and very doable. Don't make very difficult, hard resolutions, aspirations, so that after 2 months or 1 month, we forget about it. And the second thing about aspirations is it should be made in such a way that we can reflect on it on a daily basis. And constantly we reflect on it. That's part of our Buddhist practice, to be constant and do it on a daily basis. Today we are going to talk on the topic of happiness, and Sister has asked me to share on this topic of well-being. So when we ask what is well-being, we ask ourselves what is well-being. So well-being is when we are comfortable. Are you all comfortable right now? Comfortable? Good? Are you feeling healthy? Are you feeling happy? Then you all have well-being. So being happy, being comfortable, and being healthy, that is a sign of our well-being. But how do we, what are the characteristics besides being happy? What are the characteristics of being happy? The first thing when we are happy is we have positive experiences. Our emotions are positive. So if we are feeling grateful, if we are feeling contented, if we are feeling kind, if we are feeling generous, if these are our, what do you call that? They call it default mode. So we are constantly feeling these kind of emotions, positive emotions, then it is a sign that we have well-being. And then a second characteristic of well-being is when we have some control over our lives. We may not always have control over our life, but we may have some control. So for example, if somebody comes and knocks into our car, we don't have control, right? Just come and knock into you. But we have a choice, meaning how we respond to that situation, we have a choice. Either we can get angry and scold and quarrel, or we can settle it amicably, right? Now, the third characteristic, if you are well-being, how do you feel well, is when we have a sense of purpose in our life. If you are a parent, you know what, as a parent, what we should do. If you are a husband, you know what you should do. That means you have to take care of the family, make sure the family is well provided for, you do not abandon them. So these are you have a sense of purpose. You know very clearly what you are supposed to do. And then the next one is where we have positive relationships. So if your relationships with your family, with your social circle, with your working colleagues is positive, it's a good sign that you have well-being. Meaning you have a lot of care, you respect, you are appreciative of people, and you have the generous spirit. So this is one of the characteristics of well-being. And the fifth characteristic is when we have, what do you call that? We are able to do things that we can do. For example, if let's say a person is very sick and lying in bed with tubes all over their body, do you think they can do what they want to do? They want to. They really want to. They want to get up and bed. I want to be well again. But they're not able to do what they want to do or achieve what they want to do. Imagine somebody is in a mental institution or is serving long-term in the jail. Do you think they can do what they want to do? They cannot, right? So these are signs of well-being. That means we have the ability to do things that we would like to do. So in Nalanda, we have 6 well-beings. We strive to attain balance and happiness in our life by achieving the 6 well-beings. That is, what are the 6 well-beings in Nalanda? Can anybody remember? What are the 6 well-beings? All forgotten already after 2 years. We have physical well-being, mental well-being, family well-being, social well-being, and spiritual well-being. So we have 6 well-beings in Nalanda. But when we want to have these well-beings, there's a few things that we must remember. The first is, in order to attain balance and happiness, we have to give attention to every one of those. We cannot say, I want to just take care of my career, then you forget or you neglect your family. Then your well-being is not balanced and it is not harmonious. Okay? So you need to have a balance. Although you need to balance them, you need not balance them equally. You cannot say, oh, I must give, I got 6 well-beings, I divided by 100, then each one must have more or less 20%. It's not like that. Sometimes, because of our conditions in our life, some people may have a lot of time, some people may have been retired, some are very young, some are just starting out on their careers. So everybody got their own balancing, is how you find your own personal harmony. So some of them, we may be able to give more time to spiritual cultivation because our family well-being is well established, our career is well established, we are retired, we do not have to work anymore. But for younger people, maybe they might give more attention to their career, their economic well-being, rather than their spiritual well-being. So it's up to us. So there's no fixed kind of a harmony that in our well-being, or it must be like this. It's not like that. And we are also responsible for our own well-being. Nobody is responsible for our well-being except us. A few days ago, I received a call from a friend of mine. She was complaining to me about her husband. The husband is separated from her. He is living separately. It's almost about a year plus. Now, she is in the B40 category, meaning she is quite, short of funds. And so the husband receives all the government aid. Whatever the government is giving to the B40, all the aid money goes to him. And she says, he doesn't give me money, I'm in difficulty and all that. Then I told her, you have to do something about it. It's no point complaining. You come and complain to me, I cannot do anything. I cannot go and ask your husband to give you the money, right? So I said, you have to take some positive, affirmative action so that you can be able, as a single parent, you may be able to apply for in your name to get those, aid that the government is giving. So we cannot all the time say, somebody is, because of somebody, my life is so difficult. So we are responsible for our own well-being. So now let us look at some of our, emotional well-being. Since we know what is our good well-being, that means we are well, we know we have positive relationship, we experience positive emotion, we are in control of our life to a certain extent, we have all this good. So how about if we don't have well-being? We have very poor well-being. So what are the symptoms that manifest itself? So on the emotional side, what do we have? We have a lot of headache. Some people, they have this persistent headache. Have you experienced sometimes when you're very stressed out, you have this very persistent headache, and even sometimes people have constipation. They even can't go and do, clean their bowels. They come out with constipation. And then bodily aches, and most of all, they have muscle tension, very tense. Their muscle is very tensed up. And also people have chest pains because of the stress, the way they sit, the way they position themselves, they get very stressed out, they have chest pains, and I think all of you know sometimes we have insomnia, right? Have you experienced not being able to sleep because you have a very persistent, something is bugging you, so you have insomnia. Or there is sometimes nervousness, like shaking of hands, and then you have ringing in the ear. Recently I had a friend who had this condition because of the COVID. His investments were all, he was depending on rental income to pay for his investments. Then all his tenants cabut already, all gone already. Now he got no more money to pay the bank. And he was very stressed. And he developed this ringing in his ears, and he cannot even stand up. The moment he stands up, the thing is like a bell ringing in his ears. I also couldn't believe there is such a sickness until I heard about this from my friend. So he has to constantly lie down and cover his eyes and just lie down quietly. So this is one of the symptoms of poor well-being, where you're very stressed out. And how does this manifest itself in terms of behavior? Then you have changes in appetite. Because you are stressed, you don't have well-being, then you don't eat. Either you eat too much or you don't eat at all. Then people have increased, they turn to alcohol, drugs, or even sometimes cigarettes. And the third thing is they exhibit a lot of nervous behavior, such as biting the nails. What else do you do when you're nervous? You fidget. And have you noticed people walking up and down? You know, sometimes they just pace at night, especially. They just pace up and down because they are what do you call that? They are very stressed. So this is one of the signs. And there was another case of another friend of ours, also not during this COVID, but before that, when there was another downturn. He was so stressed, his well-being was so badly affected. He just couldn't take it anymore. He went up to his apartment, which was on, I think, the 13th or 14th floor. He jumped down. And he left behind. His wife just was going to deliver in about a month or two. He just ended his life because there was no well-being in his life. There was no happiness. He couldn't find the happiness that he was looking for. And then what about this emotional? It is also mental. Just now was the physical side. Let's look at the mental side. So when we have the emotional side, we are easily agitated. Our mind, we become very agitated, we are frustrated, and we are moody. And then we have difficulty relaxing. When we are not well, we have, the mind is so active, it's very hard to quiet our mind. And then we have very low self-esteem. We don't think well of ourselves, and because of that, we try to avoid people. So this is one of the symptoms of mentally we are not well. And how does this manifest? We constantly worry. We have racing thoughts. Our thoughts just keep rising and falling and disturbing us. And also we have the inability to focus, and we are very, very disorganized. And we have poor judgment at the same time. We are also pessimistic. We always see things in a negative way. We say, cannot do, very difficult. Oh, that one, I don't think I'll be able to do it. So we are very pessimistic in that sense. So these are some of the symptoms of we are not, one, we are having stress. Because of stress, we are not happy. And because we are not happy, there is no well-being in our lives. So an example of well-being, I just give you a very simple example. All of us own cars, right? Who here doesn't own a car? Hands up. People in Zoom, everybody own cars. Everybody got car, right? So your car, what do? Every time you need to pour petrol, you need to top up the water, you need to pump air sometimes for the tires, you need to pay your road tax. What else do you need to do? Wash your car, make it clean, right? And your engine is working perfectly. Your car is running in perfect. But then, oops. One day you find that the brakes are not working. You are in trouble, right? The car is it's definitely going to give you trouble, right? So it's like that. So in our life, it's like that. Although this body is very shiny, the engine is working perfectly, but when the brakes are not working, then you're going to have trouble with the car. So similarly with us also in our life, we have all the good conditions. We are economically well, we have good family, we have holidays, what else? We have all the good things, but then we feel lonely. Sometimes we feel very dejected. Sometimes we feel we are not appreciated, we've become dissatisfied, and sometimes we're even very resentful. We hold a lot of resentment within us. So although we have good things in our life, but we still don't have well-being in our lives because of that deep, dissatisfaction we have within us. So, in the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, the Buddha, so we know So in the Buddhist path of practice, what do is we overcome. Our Buddhist part of practice is about the task that we have is to overcome our sufferings. We all want to overcome our sufferings, right? Do you all want to overcome your sufferings? Right? So in order to overcome our sufferings, the Buddha said, is by eradicating. What do we eradicate? We eradicate our craving, we eradicate our delusion, we eradicate our aversion. So this, the Buddha himself discovered, this path the Buddha discovered in terms of bringing us well-being. So in the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, which was the first Buddha, the Buddha taught, and the Buddha said, Kamesu kamma sukkalikanu yogo hino gammo potu janiko anariyo anatta sanghito. The Buddha said this extreme, these two extremes, the Buddha said we should avoid at all costs. What is the extremes that we should avoid? Why should we avoid this extreme? Is because sense pleasures. The Buddha said extreme sense pleasures to be avoided. Why? Because they are very ignoble, they are very common, and in fact, they are pointless. And the second one, the Buddha said, is we overcome, we also don't indulge in atta kilamatanu yogo hino gammo potujaniko. The Buddha said, again, the other extreme, which is torture the body. The other extreme, where we, again, the Buddha said it is pointless. It is no use having this kind of attitude. And the Buddha said also this, these two extremes, that means extreme sense pleasures and extreme self-mortification of the body. Why is it not good for us? When we have extreme pleasures, what happens is, because of these sense pleasures, then we don't have access. We don't access to the inner happiness that we can cultivate. Because we are so happy. We have everything we want. So because of that, we are not able to reach into our inner happiness. Because we are so happy with our external happiness. Every day we get whatever we want. So there's no necessity for it. So because of that, it becomes a hindrance to us. And even when we do self-mortification, again, the Buddha said, because we torture the body so much, again, this also becomes a hindrance to us. So we don't have well-being for these two types of practices. And also the Buddha said, when we want to overcome these hindrances within us, there is these three training that we undertake. That is, in the Noble Eightfold Path, there are these three training paths that the Buddha has given us. And that is, let's see, what are the three paths? Okay, before that, I need to also qualify certain things. When we talk about extreme, the two extremes, the Buddha said, number one, the Buddha did not say, deny sensual pleasures to lay people like us. So please don't misunderstand the Buddha with just now when we said, kame sukama sukali, the Buddha said cannot have sense pleasures. Wrong. It's wrong. The Buddha said do not indulge in extreme sense pleasures, because when we have extreme sense pleasures, then we forgot about our inner happiness. We forgot to connect to our inner happiness. Then another thing is the Buddha also said, when we talk about physical well-being, it's not just about our exercising. People thought, physical well-being is about exercise, food, nutrition, resting, weight management, this kind. It's only a small part of our well-being, yeah? It is not just talking about the physical side of well-being. Going to the gym, putting all your, abs, and then six packs and all that, and running every day, no. Physical well-being is much, much more when we talk in terms of our spiritual well-being. And then mental well-being is not just about being able to take care of our daily stresses. So many of us, all of us go through daily stresses, but we're able to cope with it. And also not being mentally ill. That doesn't mean we are mentally well. well-being, there's mental well. These are the two things we must remember. It's much more than just being well. And so the Buddha said, when we indulge in these extremes, we are not able to have physical and mental well-being. So just now I was talking to you about the Buddhist path of practice, which is the 3 training. In order for us to eradicate suffering, which is the cause of our delusion, our craving, and our ignorance, the Buddha has given us this path of the Noble Eightfold Path. And it's divided into 3 main broad categories of Sila Sikha, which is training, Samadhi Sikha, which is on concentration, and Panya Sikha, which is on wisdom. Now, when we talk of training, we thought there is a trainer there to train us all the time, giving us instructions what to do. As you sit here today, people at home at Zoom, you are already in training. Do you know why you are in training? You are sitting upright. You are listening carefully. You are mindfully listening. If your mind has wandered off somewhere, that's also a training, because when you realize that your mind has gone somewhere and you bring it back and you again are listening carefully to what is going on, you take notes, you are mindful, that is already training. So training is not something that somebody has to tell you, you listen, you hear, and then that is training. But when you are paying attention, every moment of our life is training, whether you're training in morality, you're training in mindfulness and concentration, or whether there is insight wisdom. So now this moral discipline, Sila, is very important for our physical and our mental well-being. I will not touch on the other 2, Samadhi and also Panya, just a little bit here and there, but I will not touch it in full. So the Buddha has talked about this Sila training, which is about these 3 modes of action that we have. One is bodily action, the other is our verbal action, and the third is our mental action. So Sila or morality is what we cultivate on a day-to-day basis. So what is Sila? Sila is in terms of the training, there are these 3. So we have altogether 10 unwholesome actions, the Buddha said, we should refrain from doing. And the Buddha said in Dhammapada verse 183, the Buddha said, avoid evil, do good, and purify the mind. So in this purification of our Sila, the Buddha said, in order to do good and to avoid evil, there are these 10 unwholesome actions that we should undertake as part of our training. And when we undertake this training, we let go of our unwholesome thoughts, our speech and action. So in this, we have 3 bodily action, 4 verbal action, and 3 mental action. Let's see what they are. Okay. So the 10 unwholesome actions, the Buddha said, before we go to the 10 unwholesome actions, the Buddha said these actions that we do, this training that we undertake, it has not just about listening. As we listen, as we read, as we hear, these are all part of our training. But more importantly, we have to practice it. If we don't practice our Sila and we just listen about it, or we don't practice our concentration of our mindfulness and we just hear and say, yeah, oh, this is mindfulness, I breathe in and out, that is mindfulness, then this training will not be effective. So there was a case of 2 monks, 2 friends. They had become bhikkhus. So after they became bhikkhus, they went on their own way, and one of them was very proficient. He became very proficient and very skilled in reciting the text. He was excellent in reciting the text, and he had many, many students under him, and he was very famous. His friend, on the other hand, practiced very diligently, and he strived earnestly, and he attained arahantship. When he attained arahantship, one day, these 2 of them, they went to meet the Buddha. It so happened that they met at the monastery, Jetavana monastery, where the Buddha was residing. Now, the one who was the reciter, who was very excellent in reciting the text, he did not know his friend was already an arahant. So he had conceit in him. He had a lot of manna. He wanted to actually put his friend down, and he wanted to ask him some question so as to shame him. He thought he didn't know anything. He was just another monk. But the Buddha knew what was going on in this first monk's mind, and so he convened at the gathering of all the monks. The Buddha praised the second monk, who was already an arahant, but he never mentioned anything about the second monk, who was very famous. He was very good at reciting the text, and he was excellent. Then everybody wondered why how come the Buddha did not mention anything about this monk? He is so well known. He's such a good reciter of the text. He knows everything. How come the Buddha did not say anything about him? So then the Buddha told the monks, he said, this first monk, who is very excellent, and he can recite everything, he can remember everything, he is like a cowherd who looks after other people's cows. He does not partake of the holy life. That means he merely recites what he has learned. He does not put into practice. You see, he had conceit. He already had conceit in his mind, where he wanted to shame his friend by asking him some questions. Although he knew, he was well known for knowing the text, reciting the text, but he already had conceit in the mind. But the second one, the Buddha said, he partakes of the holy life. Even though he knows a little bit about the Dhamma, he is not very well versed in it, he cannot recite it very well, but because he practices it, he has become an arahant and is enjoying the fruits of his practice. So friends, it is very important. We can learn everything about Sila, we can learn everything about good conduct, but if we don't practice it in our daily life, if we don't forgive, if we are not generous, we are not patient, if we are not kind, then it is mere knowledge. We don't practice it. Okay? So the 10 unwholesome deeds that the Buddha asked us to consider in order that all of us can have good physical and mental well-being. So the first one is killing. When we kill, it hurts. So the Buddha said, if we want well-being for ourselves and for others, we do not harm and do not kill. And the Buddha said, the second the action that we should take is, we should not take things that don't belong to us. That is stealing. When we steal, what happens? Do you feel happy when somebody steals your car? Do you feel happy when somebody breaks into your house? Do you like? You don't like, right? How do you feel? You feel very frustrated, right? Devastated. No, you don't have a car now. Let's say somebody is sick in the home, you don't even have a car. And then the insurance company take ages to process your claim. So you have a lot of frustration. So the Buddha said we should avoid taking things that are not given to us. So we build it up as a practice because we know how much of suffering we go through that because of another person's actions. There's one time when I was working together with a colleague, so we shared a room. So one day, that time I was not I was just starting out, so my money was an issue to me. So I know how much I have in my wallet. But sometimes I find funny, how come I thought I had $200 or $100, how come less by one $50 note or something? So I began to wonder, am I being forgetful? So I realized then one day I really counted the money I put there. Then I wanted to test how this money disappeared. So I told this colleague of mine, I said, okay, I'm going upstairs. I will be back shortly. So I went up, but I didn't go up. I waited for a while and then I came back to my room. And there she was already putting a hand into my bag and taking out the money. So for me, it is like, of course, I didn't want to accuse her of anything, but then that's how, you see, I felt very, losing $50 meant a lot to me. So I know by that action, it causes suffering to others. So the Buddha said, do not take things that don't belong to us, because just as we suffer, other people's well-being also affected. Our well-being is affected, other people's well-being is affected when we take things that don't belong to us. So we have to cultivate this kind of action, wholesome action. Instead of taking things that are not given, we only take things that are given to us. Then, thirdly, what is the thing? Is sexual misconduct. Because of sexual misconduct, we can know there are so much of trouble in this world. People are jealous, people hate each other, people want to beat up each other just because of, and people even kill each other because of sexual misconduct. And the Buddha said this is due to craving. We are not satisfied. We want more and more and more. When we want more, it brings us more trouble. So the Buddha said one of the things that we should cultivate is contentment, being happy with what we have, rejoice and appreciate what we have. So sexual misconduct is one of the 10 unwholesome deeds which does not conduce to physical and mental well-being. Then the fourth one is, the Buddha said, is we have to, these are three bodily conduct. Then they have the four verbal conduct, which is false speech, harsh speech, divisive speech, and also idle speech. And the Buddha said we should avoid these four kind of speeches, because all these four in this category of speech, harsh speech, lying, and the Buddha even reminded his son Rahula. He said, Rahula, your integrity will be measured by your truthfulness. If you're truthful, you are a person of integrity. Otherwise, you don't have integrity, and there is no well-being. So when we divide, when we have divisive speech, we carry speech from one person to the other, and then we divide people. We have discord, we have disharmony. We are the cause of discord, disharmony, and unhappiness among people. So the Buddha said, watch the speech, especially the veracity of the speech, the motivation of our speech, and the way we speak. So when we divide, it causes, there is no well-being, there's no happiness in ourselves as well as others. Because we ourselves are already full of hate, we have a lot of anger, we have a lot of greed in us. So when we go and transmit to another person, there are two people now not well in this world. So 4 kinds of speech, the Buddha said, we should avoid for our well-being. And the last is the third 3 mental states, that is covetousness, ill will, and also wrong view. Now when we talk of covetousness, it is based on greed. We want to have things that other people have. And it is a desire, a very strong desire, which is based on greed. And because of that greed, it can cause a lot of problems. I want the job, I want the job, so I'll go and sabotage somebody. So that is a greed. And then we have ill will. Ill will is based on anger and hate. Because of that deep anger, deep hatred, we cause a lot of ill will to others. And also, the worst is wrong view. What is wrong view? People don't believe there is good and bad in the world. They don't believe in the law of karma. They don't believe that there is such a thing as, mother or father, or this world. They don't believe there is rebirth. They don't believe that there is people who practice goodness and become saints so that they can become useful to the world. They don't believe in all these law of karma. They don't believe in the law of rebirth. They don't believe in heavenly realms or in whatever realms. They said everything is here, nothing matters. They said everything is here. So this is the type of wrong views that leads to physical and mental disturbances for people. We are not well if we don't have right view, when we have wrong views. Because when we have wrong views and we said, there is no good, there is no bad. So we will continue to do bad because we said, it's okay, there's no law of karma to, there's no consequences for my action. And when we don't have when we don't believe in the law of rebirth, then we say, whatever happens is here. When I die, that's it, finish already. So there's no consequences to my action. So we also have to, because of that, many things will happen, and there is also, again, conduces to our not being physically and mentally well. Now that we know what are the things that we should avoid for our well-being, let us now say what are the ways, how can we actually use what we have learned, that is our morality, our concentration, and also our insight wisdom. How do we use these practices that we have done to conduce to give rise to our well-being? So the first practice that we can do is, one of the very important practices is letting go. Most of us, we grasp onto our feelings, our hate, our anger, and we suffer as a result of that. So within us, it is a very important practice in everyday life. So for example, if you plan to go somewhere today, and then it starts to rain, and then you cannot go out, and you have to let go. But you sit there and complain, why this rain? But you don't know, people, houses all flooded. But here you are complaining. So one of the practices is, it's okay, I can go another day. So you let go. This is a very simple practice of letting go. Let's say you have just a weekend off. Now you have to make a choice whether you want to come to Nalanda to spend 3 hours here cleaning this place, or you have to go and visit your mother-in-law whom you haven't visited in 1 year. So you have to choose, otherwise your husband is putting his hands on his hips and looking at you. So now you have to make a choice. So one of the things is, okay, I have to let go of coming to clean at Nalanda, and I have to make my husband happy. So we make choices like this in our daily life. So this is one of the practices of letting go. So for example, let's say a friend comes to you and said, you've been working very hard, you're very stressed. Then the friend says, okay, let's go for a weekend. Let's go to a resort and spend a weekend there, just a day, and then we'll come back. But you tell, cannot, I have a project to do, I have an important phone call, my client is going to call me, and so on and so forth. And you're stuck there. But your friend is very convincing. He says, come darling, let's go. And then you give up, and then you follow him. As you go there, when you arrive there, you settle down, you see so much of greens, nice tall trees, and then you see the white sky, the blue skies above you, you feel the breeze upon your body, you're so happy sitting there. Then you forget about your boss, you forget about your client, you forget about your work. So that is a kind of letting go. Then you know the feeling where you're attached to your work, you're attached to your project. But now you have let go. And then you see, you feel so happy, you feel very calm and peaceful. That is an example of letting go. So in daily life, one of the practices for our well-being is to actually detach a little bit and let go of things that we are holding on to, we are grasping onto. If we want to have well-being in our lives, learn how to let go little things and slowly try to let go of bigger things in our life. But the Buddhist practice of letting go is much more than what we let go in our daily lives. What is the Buddhist practice of letting go? We let go of our conceit. We let go of our grasping. We let go of our demands in terms of our attachments to our opinions. We're very attached to our opinions. We are very attached to our views. We are very attached to our desires. So the Buddhist practice is letting go of these kind of inner defilements within us. Because of these attachment, we can cause a lot of unhappiness to ourselves and also to others. So this is one practice of letting go. The second practice of letting go is when we are able to nurture positive states, mental states. So every one of us, within us, deep within us, actually, we carry positive seeds, we carry negative seeds. Some of us, at times, we may be very negative, at times we may be very positive. But if we can actually cultivate, we can bring up, we can summon those good things within us, and it becomes habitual. Day after day, when we practice these positive seeds, we water the positive seeds, we nurture the positive seeds, then we find that we have much more happiness in terms of our physical and our mental well-being. So in our daily practice, try your very best to have this kind of what do you call that, practice of arousing mental states. So when I remember this kind of mental positive states, these mental positive states may be brought to us from the past. Remember, we have lived many lifetimes. This is not our only lifetime. So because of our past lifetimes, we have accumulated a lot of these negative, and they are very, very, very dark kind of negative states. So we are very prone to being negative if we don't train our mind in positive seeds, in bringing up positiveness. So it is not something that can be done easily, but if we put practice into it with mindfulness and with our concentration, then we can have these positive. So it's like Achancha said, Achancha, he said if we want to plant vegetables, okay, you have a bed, you have made a bed and then you plant vegetables in it. Then sooner or later you will see weeds are growing, right? Weeds are growing everywhere. Now you got a choice. Whether you want to just leave all the weeds there as it is, because once the weeds grow, it will overtake the vegetables. Or you just want to throw everything. I say, don't bother about this, I just throw it away. Or you just take out the weeds and then let the vegetables grow into very nicely and healthily. So just like that, if we nurture the positive seeds, there are negative seeds in us. So if we can weed them, we can fertilize them, if we can water them, then we nurture our positive seeds. So this is another way that we can have well-being in our life. And the third is, again, just now when I was talking about mindfulness, the mindfulness is we done with joy. If every moment we are mindful, that mindfulness that we have becomes concentration. And we enjoy that kind of mindfulness, that state. So when unwholesome thoughts arise in our mind, because of that mindfulness, it very immediately it will go and change that unwholesome thought into a positive thought or a joyful thought. There was one time my brother, he was very sick, and he became very thin, and we couldn't find out the reason why he was, what was his nature of sickness. After many rounds, finally he went to a doctor, and the doctor told him, brother, you have TB. All the doctor he went, nobody can find what was wrong with him. Only the doctor, a very simple clinic, the doctor said, actually you have TB. All you have to do is to go to the government clinic, because the government knows how to treat this. You just go and get the treatment and you'll be well. But before he did that, for him to breathe, he started breathing out blood because his lungs were infected. And for just to breathe, just to take a breath and in and out, it became so difficult for him because of the infection. And after a while, he became well because of the medication that was given to him. So when I remember how difficult it is for him just to take a breath, just an in-breath, he has to take very deep and then he will start coughing up. But if we breathe, as we sit here now, we breathe. We actually bring our mindfulness to this breathing of ours. We enjoy that breath. So we bring mindfulness to us, and there's a lot of joy. One day I was in the garden while I was doing my gardening, and suddenly there was this gust of wind, This wind just kept, it just kept blowing and blowing and blowing. And then suddenly I noticed, wow, this wind is so beautiful. Oh, it's so refreshing, I didn't notice it at first, but it was just like, kind of gently nudging me. And then I said, then I said, wow, I feel so much of joy. So this kind of joy, we can actually bring it up at any moment that we are mindful. Only when the mindfulness came, then I began to enjoy that breeze. Before that, I was just, very happily just reading. I was not aware. But when I became mindful, I realized, there's so much of joy in this wind that comes. So when we are sweeping the floor, when we are washing our dishes, when we are typing on our laptop, when we are having a conversation with our friend, when we are walking to the shop, anytime we can have mindfulness, arouse this mindfulness to bring up joy within us. So if, let's say, we have been caught in this big flood that is going on in our country now, many people are suffering from the flood. If a person who has in this blood, they will sure suffer. They will say, why me? I have lost everything. Why the God is not kind to me? Many things will be going on in the mind. But if we are skillful, we apply mindfulness, we can always say, yes, I have lost my property, my things are all destroyed, my house is gone. But you know what? What is the good thing that is happening? There's so many people. Everywhere people come to help us, right? You see, many people go and help to clean. They form squads, donation, food is given, even they are provided with a lot of appliances. Many people are helping them. And most importantly, what is the joy that they can have within them? They can reflect, I'm alive, because 50 over people died in the flood. I could be one of those 50, right? But if you think, wow, luckily I'm alive. And most importantly, my family is safe. Because I have a friend in our Taman, in our chat group, we have a RA chat group. And then he told me, he chat in the group, he says, my mother-in-law is missing, don't know where she is. Even the rescue boat went to the house, cannot find. He said, no car in there, because the water is up to the roof. They say there's no car there, the car is probably inside. After a few days, we received a message. They found the body of the mother-in-law. She was alone in the house. There was nobody, because there was no one could go to rescue her. So if we have this joy, then we can bring it up and say, yes, I have good things. Yes, something bad has happened, but I also have good things. So we can have mindfulness of joy. So how does this mindfulness arise? Is because we have concentration. Little by little, that mindfulness, every time unwholesome comes up, we push it away, we replace it with joyful thought. And we cultivate this kind of positive in us. And we will find a lot of well-being in us. And lastly, we have our wisdom and insight. When we have mindfulness and we have this training, now all this just does arise like that. You have to have the training, and constantly you have this practice of wisdom and insight. And when insight comes, when you're constantly mindful, that's where concentration comes. And in that concentration, there is insight. Insight means the mind is very clear, it's very bright. There's clarity in the mind. It is able to see, oh, this thing is not good, this one is good. For example, if someone has gone through a very bitter divorce, okay, they go through a bitter divorce, and now they have got over it, everything is settled, they are peaceful now. Then they find that a friend of theirs, a friend of theirs, is also going through the same thing. So when we have this insight, when we have wisdom, we reflect how my friend is also going through the same difficulty I have gone through. And he said, now I am much more settled, I'm happy. But let's say if you don't have insight, you don't have the wisdom, what you will say, you will go back to that past thought, and you will say, that person is not good. He caused me a lot of trouble. She is too, she is too greedy. We will have all these unwholesome thoughts come, and we will again dig up everything. We will bring, and then we play masa-masa with it, and then we will get very unhappy with it. So, friends, remember, these are the 4 practices that we can practice. That is, we can have letting go, we can have positive mindsets, we nurture our positive seeds within us, we can have mindfulness, joy in our mindfulness, and also through insight and wisdom we can practice daily to have well-being in our life. And so I will leave you with this quote by Venerable Ajahn Chah, because this quote is also a kind of aspiration that Venerable has made for himself. And dear friends, up to the time that we actually attain our enlightenment, all of us, until the day that we are fully enlightened, we will fall away. We will have difficulties. There is no way that we will be all perfect in every way. So when it will happen again and again, we will fall. But when it happens, what do? We pick ourselves up again. We start our training back again. We sustain it. We increase our effort. And then we can walk the path easily by gaining this wisdom and insight. So it is not something that we talk about, we read about, or we hear about, but we have to train ourselves. So as we sit here, thank you for training yourselves and listening carefully. And let us now reflect on what Venerable Ajahn Chah has left us with. He says, I dedicate body and mind. That's all we have, friends. It is our body and our mind. My whole life to the practice of the Lord Buddha's teachings in their entirety. I will realize the truth in this lifetime. I will let go of everything and follow the teachings, no matter how much suffering and difficulty I have to endure. I will persevere, otherwise there will be no end to my doubts. So we must keep on persevering, otherwise we will again and again come into doubts. And Venerable also said, I must make this life as even and continuous as a single day and night. I will abandon attachments to mind and body and follow the Buddha's teachings until I know the truth for myself. So this is a very beautiful aspiration made by our Venerable Ajahn Chah. And the Buddha also said, if you take a fish, out of water and you throw it on the ground, what does the fish do? It quivers, right? It gasps for breath. It is suffering, So the Buddha said that training is like that. We all, when we want to train in morality, we want to train in mindfulness and concentration, and also inside, we are like that fish, We quiver, it's very hard, very difficult to do. I better go and swim inside my water. And it's like the fish. You put a bait, and the hook. So the fish, what you do, he see the bait, he will go and bite. Again and again and again, he will go and bite the bait. Although he knows if he bite it, he will have suffering. So with that, friends, I leave you to ponder on Venerable Ajahn Chah's teachings as well as his aspirations, and also let us make our aspirations so that we too can be free and we have a lot of physical and mental well-being. So with that, may the gift of this Dhamma be shared with all beings. May all beings be well and happy. Namo Buddhaya. And so friends, it's also good, I have a little, a little video by Venerable Ajahn Jayasaro. He has also given us a little bit of advice, a short video on his advice on our well-beings.
So another year has passed. It's been a very difficult one for everyone, I think. But what I would like to share with you today is that difficulties and challenges, problems, these don't necessarily result in suffering, or at least we can reduce the amount of suffering in our lives and increase the amount of happiness by taking responsibility for our body, speech and mind. This is something we can all do. And if we really observe ourselves very closely, we'll see that so much of our suffering is thinking about, worrying about the problems, rather than dealing with the problems themselves. Dealing with problems, we don't really have a choice. It's just one step at a time, one thing at a time. But it's the thinking, the anticipation, the worry, the stress, that's really the awful thing in people's lives these days, making bad things much worse than they need to be. So in this new year, I'd like to encourage everyone to come back to their body and their mind and learn how to take care of your body, take care of your mind, because this is what will lead to a happy new year. So if we are looking at my own mind, I observe, for instance, that whenever I reflect on the kindness of others, the generosity of others, all that I have benefited from my parents, my teachers, my friends, my students, I feel really good straight away. So this is like a key to happiness, is just the moment that you put down your own self-concern and reflect on all that you've been given in your life, you just feel happy. And the moment that we grasp on to a thought or a memory and make a story out of it, it becomes so real, and it's like we're just consumed by the pain and the difficulties in our lives. And if we can look very closely, we can see that all that begins with that jumping onto, grasping onto a single thought. And if our mind is sharp enough and bright enough and clear enough, we don't have to do that. It's like somebody knocking on the door. You don't have to open the door. You don't have to fight with the person knocking on the door. You don't have to open the door. You can just be aware of it and let it pass. So we're in a time of incredible change, and many of them not so pleasant changes, but we do have the inner resources to be able to deal with what life throws at us if we're willing to invest the time and the energy in cultivating them. So I wish you all the dedication to your own true well-being, and hope that you can all find that time and inspiration to put some effort into looking after your body, looking after your speech, looking after your mind, and wish you all the very best for the coming new year.